Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Jordan Love is back at practice. Will his absence really only be one game? Also, the Milwaukee Brewers clinched the NL Central again, but the postseason monkey remains squarely on their backs. And the best reporter in the business reminded us how much success costs.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Jordan Love returned to practice on Wednesday. And that's important, not just because he returned to practice, but that it happened on Wednesday. If Jordan Love was never going to play against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday after an MCL injury in week 1 cost him his week 2 game against the Indianapolis Colts, the Packers could continue the charade if it is one. If this was all just gamesmanship and he was never really close in week 2, they could trot him out there Friday, let him throw a couple passes, say he was limited, say he's questionable and has a chance to play, and make the Colts seem like a thing that, well, the Titans, you saw, maybe he can play. Is that going to work against the Tennessee Titans? Are they going to buy that? Now you don't have to worry about any of that because Jordan Love practiced. And I don't mean just kind of practice at a practice that the media attended even. And we saw him do the drills, the normal Jordan Love drills. It seems like a very real possibility now that it is just a 1-week absence and that there is a risk being taken with the $250 million that the Packers spent on Jordan Love just a couple months ago. If that seems like a risk, maybe it is. Now, how much does this actually matter? That's the question that if you're a Titans fan, if you're a Packers fan, you have to be wondering, is Jordan Love at 75%, let's say, that much different than, say, Malik Willis at 100%? And the answer is probably yes, but the Packers did just win a game against the Colts with Malik Willis. And it would be foolish to think that having won a game doesn't play into how they'll approach this week. Having that extra win, that little cushion, that little buffer makes it easier for the Packers to say, okay, until Jordan Love is all the way back, let's just wait. We saw that there is a plan with Malik Willis. What's interesting to me is in the ways that this offense has to evolve from what we saw in week 2. They have to use more play action. They have to expand the passing game playbook for Malik Willis. The Tennessee Titans defense is just too good to run the ball 53 times, by the way, the most in a decade. But if Jordan Love is not 100%, if he can't move, and he admitted yesterday that he is probably not going to be able to move the way that we're used to seeing him, that means things like the under center play action game, the boot game, places where Jordan Love and this offense thrived last year might not be on the menu for him. Might be a lot of shotgun. Well, that's where Malik Willis played almost exclusively last week. So it might be a very similar game plan, whether it's Malik Willis or Jordan Love. Now, the difference in quality of play is where the rubber meets the road here. Jordan Love, in addition to being able to get to way more passing concepts from the gun with Matt LaFleur than Malik Willis, is probably just going to execute any plan with more effectiveness than Malik Willis. That's why Jordan Love got the biggest contract ever at the time, and why Malik Willis was traded for a 7th round pick. I don't think it matters who plays quarterback for the Green Bay Packers on Sunday. I think the Packers are going to beat the Tennessee Titans. But last week, I didn't think Jordan Love had a shot to play this week. Now, not only do I think he has a shot, I think the odds are better than not that he plays. Stay up to date on the Green Bay Packers all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Packers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Brewers are in a familiar position as division champions. Can they change their postseason fortunes? Before we answer that, the Panthers aren't interested in trading the benched number 1 overall pick. Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app, and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Panthers head coach Dave Canales confirmed on Wednesday that bench quarterback Bryce Young still has every opportunity to lead the franchise. Well, maybe not every opportunity because he's not going to play on Sunday, but Canales also debunked any possibility the Panthers would consider trading the top pick of the 2023 draft, who has been replaced by 36-year-old Andy Dalton for Sunday's game against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, it's not something we're really considering. We have a great situation with our quarterbacks right now with guys that have experience. And so we love where we're at, and we're all hands on deck. We're focused on playing the Raiders this week.
Two-time MVP Eli Manning, former Defensive Players of the Year Luke Kuechly and Terrell Suggs, postseason kicking hero Adam Vinatieri are among the first-time nominees for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2025. A screening committee will reduce the list of 167 nominees to 50 players next month. Tight end Antonio Gates, receivers Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne, offensive lineman Willie Anderson and Jari Evans, defensive backs Darren Woodson, Eric Allen, Ronnie Harrison, defensive lineman Jared Allen, and running back Fred Taylor are back on the list. And this is your annual reminder, Mike Holmgren should already be in. The Philadelphia 76ers are not going anywhere. Mayor Sherelle Parker announced Wednesday that she has forged a deal with team owners to keep the NBA franchise in town and will send it to the city council. Included in the deal is a plan to build a new $1.3 billion arena downtown. The decision comes despite objections from nearby Chinatown residents and just weeks after New Jersey's governor offered $400 million in tax breaks to build the site across the river in Camden. The Milwaukee Brewers knew they had the NL Central all wrapped up on Wednesday night when they took the field to play the Philadelphia Phillies. They walked off the Phils anyway, and they got that celebration going in earnest. Chuck Freeman was in the locker room. He now may or may not smell like large amounts of alcohol. And Chuck, this is a team now that, 3 of the last 4 years, they've won the division. They've been a playoff team. This does have a different feeling to it, this team, especially right now, though.
I hope so. They've been finding so many different ways to win and finding ways to win. And they did here tonight. It was a 1-1 game. They were down 1-0 at one point. Reese Hoskins hit a home run, and then it got a walk-off base hit by Jake Bowers to win it. But the magic has all been there in the regular season. Kind of reminds me of a few years ago, 2021. They had some of that magic going, but they failed in the postseason. Now, the question on everybody's mind in the state of Wisconsin, can the Brewers do this in the postseason? Can they keep this kind of magic going? Because, they're making all the right moves. The pitchers are making the key pitches, and they're coming up with clutch base hits. But can this young team do it in October when it counts the most?
Well, winning your division helps because it sets you up not having to play these do or die games as you're trying to get into the postseason. And we're also seeing the maturation of, I know he's 20 years old. I saw the stroller with the NA beer in it, but to me, Jackson Chourio has the potential to be the difference maker because already he has walked in. The lights are not too bright for him. And you need that sort of incandescent star in the postseason to step forward. It looks like it could be him.
I'll tell you, since the All-Star break, Peter, you have to consider him for one of the MVPs in the national.
No doubt.
He's not going to get it, but I mean, if you look at all the big moments he's been in tonight, a leadoff triple in the bottom half of the ninth inning, and he's just
scores the winning run.
Yeah, it scored the winning run on the Bauer's base hit. So, and you're right. Yeah, they had the non-alcohol down there because he's 20 years old. And you know what? Those Wisconsin cops, they aren't going to tolerate an underage drinker in the state of Wisconsin. Even if it is the most famous teenager in Wisconsin, Jackson Chourio.
Yeah. This is a Brewers team that I think if you look around Major League Baseball, and I think we talked about a month or so ago about this when you looked at the Philadelphia Phillies, they were not separating themselves. The Dodgers weren't separating themselves. And they're all still lumped together here at the top. The Phils 91 wins, the Brewers 88, and the Dodgers 90. This is still going to be a sprint to the finish.
It is. I think it's going to be difficult catching the Phillies because they have the overall tiebreaker for those top two seeds. But the Dodgers have a 2-game lead. Dodgers won on Wednesday night. They have a 2-game lead on Milwaukee, plus they own the tiebreaker. So the Brewers actually got to make up 3 games now here down the stretch. That's going to be tough. Not impossible, but it's going to be tough. But I think that's what I've been saying all along. You know, this division title has pretty much been won since the beginning of August. You know, the Cubs have had a couple of runs at it, but these guys have pretty much clinched the division title, way back midsummer. But I've always thought the 1 or 2 seed, they need to get maybe a 1 or 2 seed to avoid that wild card round because the season ended 27 hours in the wild card here last year.
Yeah, the Brewers right now lead baseball in run differential, which was not on anyone's bingo card to start the season here. One thing in the postseason, Chuck, is you have to be able to defend your home field. The Brewers just 44-30 at Miller Park this year. It's not like they're bad crowds. Like what is keeping them back from holding them back from being a dominant home team? Well,
they've won on the road. They just came off a 4-2 road trip. Should have been 5-1. This is a team that doesn't have a big margin of error. They got to do a lot of things correctly to win a game. And it's funny because when the offense goes cold, the pitching picks them up. Not a lot of offense out here tonight, but the pitching picked them up. And that's been one of the stories. Earlier in the week, they got to win again. They took 2 or 3 from the Phillies because the pitching picked them up. Over the weekend against Arizona, it was the offense that exploded. So, again, that magic has got to continue. But, the crowds will be out here. They have 30,000 out here tonight to clinch this on a school night. 2 weeks from tonight, I'm sure they'll be back at it if they're playing a wild card game here, unless they get that home field advantage and, advance to the divisionals. But, I think, again, the true test is going to come. They have failed in October. They have not won a playoff series since 2018, Peter. That's key. They won a wild card series, the best of 5 with the Rockies that year. They have something to prove in October, and they feel like this team could do it.
All right, well, if it's a school night, make sure Jackson Chourio does his homework and don't get pulled over on your way home. Thanks, Chuck.
Very good. Thanks, Peter.
Stay up to date all year on the Milwaukee Brewers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Brewers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the best sports reporter in the business reminded us the toll success can take on you. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you could take a look at some early Week 3 lines. The Arizona Cardinals have begun the season hot. Now they host the Detroit Lions. FanDuel has the Cardinals as 3-point home dogs. Kind of like that one. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Adrian Wojcicki Wojnarowski called it a career as an NBA reporter on Wednesday. He announced that he will be leaving ESPN and taking a position on the St. Bonaventure basketball staff. Locked On NBA host Nick Angstadt and Swipa waxed poetic about Woj's impact on the league.
Look, I think that whenever you do something at a high level for that long, for 30 years, I think it just takes a toll on you and on your family. And, you know, one of the people that I kind of learned this from in the game was Ernie Johnson. You know, Ernie Johnson is a very big family. And Ernie has talked about why it's been really important for him to do inside the NBA, to do TNT, because to do it in Atlanta and to be stationary. Because when you do that, especially when you have a schedule like they do, where you only cover large parts of the season and you really only work one day a week for the most part during the season, and then in the playoffs, you're basically on every night. That just gives you a lot of freedom, you know, to be able to take care of your family financially, but also to be able to be there physically. Woj is on the opposite spectrum of that. Woj makes good money, but again, every trade Woj is very connected to NBA front offices in particular. So every time there is something that's done at the coaching level, at the ownership level, every time there's going to be new news updated about the CBA, adjustments that are being made in officiating, whenever they get something big that's a transaction, it goes to Woj. So you imagine being the steward of information for 30 separate ball clubs and then having to report on almost anything of relevance at all, just by the nature of the fact that social media makes it so immediate that as soon as you find out, you really only have a set amount of time before the next person finds out. And as your reputation as a newsbreaker, you want to be the first one to do it. That's the way news works as well. Like, you know, different context, but as somebody born in the 90s, you know, the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase, that was a huge thing. But the reason why it was so crazy is because we only really had one network to go to that was covering it at first. And then that became like the news story of the day. Like, whenever you're in this game, the quicker you can do it and the more accurate you are, the better reputation you get, the further you move up the ladder. And Woj was at the very top of that. And I would even say, you know, politically, like, there's a lot of people that do similar to what he does, but Adrian Wojnarowski had this network of communication that was rivaled by, I would say, almost no one in media. And so I think it's a great thing, Nick. I think that when you become that good at what you do, that recognized, it's a really good honor to have. But at the end of the day, like, I'm also like a family man, and I think that's a part of it too. You know, you want to take care of your people and you want to take care of your health, and you just want to make sure that you're doing what you can to provide. But on the other end of that, man, like, you know, I got to make sure that I'm living my life at the same time.
It's hard to imagine ever having another Woj. I don't know what greater compliment I could give than that. His name was synonymous with breaking news, not just breaking news in the NBA, where he broke everything forever, but in any sport. You might joke with your friends about a Woj bomb in a text. He was one of the only newsbreakers who you had to have notifications on at all times because he was liable to break something out of nowhere. He was newsbreaking in the NBA. And no one will dominate like this ever again. It won't happen. He's a legend. And in my opinion, the greatest news-breaking reporter of our lifetime. And finally, teams in baseball celebrate with booze, with champagne, with beer. But when the Milwaukee Brewers clinched the NL Central, as we talked about with Chuck Freeman earlier, they had a special surprise for Jackson Chourio, one of the stars of the second half push that the Brewers have made. They had a stroller, like the one you have for a baby, filled with NA beer. Yep, he's 20 years old. Can't drink the beer, can't drink the champagne. So they had a special stroller just for the baby of the team. Aren't they nice? Does seem a little wrong that a player on the Brewers can't have actual brew, but I guess they're laws. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, what is the most important thing to watch for in Week 3? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.